find something that you can work with ChatGPT or Gemini or whoever, and just start to get used to using this tool.
Presented by Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium. You're listening to Lights, Camera, Learn. Welcome to another episode of Lights, Camera, Learn. Our guest today is Holly Clark. She's a speaker, an educator, and an author of a series of books called The Infused Classroom. Holly, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You know, when I was reading your background and I realized, how extensively you must speak and travel, I feel actually pretty honored that you decided to spend the day with this part of your day with us anyway. Thank you.
You almost got an email from me when my flight was delayed this morning that but I'm here. So
okay. Well, thank you. So the first thing I want to ask you is about this whole series of books, The Infused Classroom, and where did the idea for that come from?
So simple. I used to go and work with my teachers, and I would work with other schools. And every time I would be at another school, and even back at my own school, people would be like, "Oh, you're here. I need you to teach me how to do this," or "I want to try this." And I just wanted something that they could, when I'm not there, they could look at, and it would just be a quick and easy resource, not meant to be like a novel or a self-help book, like where it's a lot of text, but something you could just be like, okay, I want to do something around formative assessment. Let me go to that chapter. So it all started from trying to put myself multiple places, I guess.
Okay. So your first book came out, about 7 years ago? It was Google in the Classroom, Infused Classroom or something like that, I think.
2015, actually.
Okay. Got it. Wow. Okay. So lots changed since then, right?
Yeah.
So what, I want to take a step backwards then. What got you interested in education?
Oh, well, I was a teacher for 20 years, and I was one of the first people that I know of. There are others, but that I was around teaching. I was the first person to have a one-to-one classroom, and I had that one-to-one classroom in 1999. So I've been using technology for so long that I can now wrap my head around what's going to work, what's not going to work. And that's how that came about.
Okay. And so when you start looking at how you kind of infuse the idea of an infused classroom, what does an infused classroom look like?
It looks like it's infused with technology, but in a way that puts learning first.
Okay. So describe what that might look like on a day-to-day basis.
So on a day-to-day basis right now, it looks kind of different because we have AI, but I'll explain AI. So there are apps right now that allow students to just ask questions, maybe get some background knowledge about something before you go in and start teaching it. So I'm trying to infuse those powerful pedagogical structures like background knowledge, like mental hooks, with the technology so that it's more powerful. And right now we have a lot of messages out there that people would like you to believe that technology turns out it's not working in classrooms. And that's absolutely not true. What is not working is the kill and drill or skill, whatever development that kids are doing that differentiates, and they're on a program that's helping differentiate and do these drill and kill kind of things. No kid wants to do them. I don't think we can lead any kind of literacy growth back to them because we don't have any literacy growth. We have dropped by 3 points. But so thinking beyond that, and I think that was a company, let's be honest, who wanted to make money, many companies who wanted to make money, and wanted to fill a gap. And so teachers who didn't understand technology were like, oh, I'll use one of these programs and I'm using technology in my classroom. And I think that caused some issues where people are like, technology in schools isn't working. That's not. But things that I'm trying to do, I can see growth almost right away.
So when you work with teachers, what are the steps you take to get them over some of their hesitation or outright distrust of technology in the classroom?
Well, and it's more around AI right now. The rest of AI. I think that they understand there can be some good with technology. I think the learning curve, they'd like to say, oh, it turns out it's bad, so they don't have to have that learning curve. But with with AI, it's really kind of easy just to make a little, we'll call it a chatbot. I like to call it a thought
Hmm.
partner, but where kids have guardrails around what they're going to ask questions about. It doesn't go off, it doesn't do anything else. It's not a really high learn thing for a teacher. And the results when a kid gets to ask questions, as this one example, before going into a lesson are just so valuable for every kid to have the same mental hooks instead of a kid in a different socioeconomic status
Yeah.
knowing stuff and another kid not and another kid speaking a different language, and we can really level the playing field. I've always felt that way with technology, but I don't know that. I think because we gave a bunch of Chromebooks out to teachers and we didn't give them the correct training, I think it caused an issue. With AI, we have an easy button for that right now. If
Hmm.
teachers will just take a moment and listen and hear some stories, then they might really be willing to put in that 5 minutes that it'll take. Before it took a little longer.
Well, I
Um,
think that's true. Yeah,
yeah.
because a lot of what we do is we work with media educators, teaching them, helping them teach kids how to make media. So working cameras and lights and audio, right? But to your point, most of them take the easy path because they just don't have the time, for the most part, to learn it the way that you probably should.
Yeah.
And we ran into that when we ran a training here, and the couple of teachers that had 10 years of experience on cameras and a teacher that maybe had a year and a half ended up producing the exact same kind of end result. Because the one that had 10 years worth of bad experiences, and bad habits that they built up. So I think that's pretty likely with the tech that you're talking about too, right?
Yeah. And I think people have this. So I was just talking in a keynote couple days ago that there's this thing called Brandolini's Law. And Brandolini's Law say that it takes no effort to spread misinformation. But it takes a lot of effort to debunk it. And in some cases you never can. And it can be, we see it in our world. It can
Right.
be quite simple and it just doesn't get debunked. And so I think right now that there's lots of TikToks, lots of Instagram reels being made that things are too hard. It's not working out in education, and debunking that is hard. And when a teacher has had a bad experience, they just move on and say,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. But I hope AI can help kind of bridge that gap because it's just so easy. Now, when I talk about AI, I'm not talking about a teacher making a lesson plan with AI.
Okay.
They can do that,
Yeah.
and that's up to them. I'm really talking about students and the things that can happen around learning that change, like I said, those mental hooks, that background knowledge, the having a thought partner, having something to scaffold in deeper to content. So so I think AI leads us to an easy button for both lesson planning and for that. So I'm
Yeah. So what would that look like from an implementation in a classroom?
So let's say that you're using an AI tool to have a thought partner for a student.
Okay.
Maybe they're going to design a script.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going to do something like that. So I can build a chatbot. I could use Magic School, School AI, doesn't matter, Flint, whatever. And there's lots of tools. But I build a chatbot that says, we're only going to be talking about script writing, or we're only going to be looking at plot, or we're going to be looking at PSAs. And the kids go in and kind of talk to their thought partner about, well, I have an idea for a PSA and I want to do these things. And the thought partner will come back and say, well, that's good, but we need a different message. What's your call?
Yeah.
Or whatever to action. And we'll help them without giving them the answer. And I think some people think that that takes away the thinking of kids, and I actually think it enhances the thinking of kids. And that's because I've sat down next to kids and watched them do it and watched them really think. Like the other day, a kid was doing one of these chatbots, and all of a sudden, spontaneous, she opens up her own Google Doc and starts taking notes about what this chatbot is telling her. And I
Interesting.
thought, like people think that kids aren't going to do that anymore, but when in fact, they are spontaneously. So
Yeah.
kid might do that with a script.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's interesting because we deal with a lot of teachers, some of whom just are adamantly opposed to using AI, period. And I'm sure you're finding the same thing. How are you getting those teachers past that kind of a cul-de-sac they've backed themselves into?
Ugh, it's a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's certain teachers. So it's so I try and share stories from the classroom.
Okay.
When you can see it, I think it's better than just hearing that AI is doing all these things and there's all these problems and kids aren't learning to think. What that teacher is hearing is that kids are going to AI and copying and pasting a
Yeah.
paper. And that's just not what it looks like. There was a thing out today from Jensen Huang, who's the CEO of NVIDIA, that said, we have actually reached, he thinks, artificial general intelligence, which is the point at which artificial intelligence becomes smarter than us. And I'm doing so much with AI, like building websites, building these things
Mm-hmm.
that I think AI is going to build now. And if we don't prepare kids for that, like I'm watching in my, because I have dyslexia. So one of the things about dyslexia is you can see patterns like a lot sooner than
Okay. Sure.
people because you had to make the patterns up
Yeah.
around the words you didn't understand. So it makes you a pattern finder.
Yeah.
And the patterns is that I'm just watching. I don't even know if realtors will have a job in 10 years. I don't know if like all of those jobs we're preparing kids for, I don't know that they're around. And so this teacher who wants to stick in this 1994 teaching where a kid has to write everything out, I think that could be a really problematic for their future. And for someone like me who's dyslexic, I cannot write everything out. If you
Sure.
be a thought partner, and I can write it out. It's just going to take me 8 hours and the other
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
But like you have this incredible tool that can reach these neurodivergent learners, these ESL learners, and then you're like still living in 1994 wanting to give out worksheets and have kids write in notebooks. And listen, all that stuff happens with AI.
Yeah.
It just has like it has I don't know, maybe like a thought partner or superpower with it. And
Yeah.
I think those teachers just need to see examples and get comfortable. And I understand why they're not.
Yeah. I mean, some of them look at it too from a creative infringement standpoint.
Yeah.
Like don't go use AI to create songs. Don't use AI to create scenes in a film project you're working on. Where do you stand on that kind of point of view?
So, I don't know. It's
That's
evolving
fair. Yeah.
because I just watched a whole film today that was created, or this morning when I woke up, I do that. I watch TV a little bit. I wake up. Anyway, it was created all by AI.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're not teaching kids to create with AI and only create in the 1994 style or whatever, and not do a storyboard, maybe there just needs to be a balance of both.
Yeah.
Huh?
I think that's true. Yeah. Because, I mean, part of the example I gave, can you imagine if Mozart's family was around today and decided to do copyright infringement on every song that had anything related to any song that Mozart created? I mean, that's basically where you're at, right?
Yeah.
Because people who create songs today they look back, they don't even realize that the music they're creating had something to do with past composers that they may not even be that familiar with, but something is in their subconscious that they could have heard. And the same with art. I mean, people are inspired by other people's art. And I just feel it's another form of inspiration to use AI as opposed to stealing it, because you're not copying that person's art. You're using it in AI as an inspiration tool.
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but that's kind of how I validate some of the things
Yeah.
that we use here. We're trying not to replace it from a sheer creativity standpoint, but more as a tool to enhance the creativity that we can somehow create with it.
Well, I don't do a lot of script writing or story scenes. I did. I taught
Sure.
that. I taught media literacy
Okay, there you go.
many years, but I envision for me in my head right now, it would start with a kid filling out a storyboard
Yeah,
and doing that on their own the first round, and then bringing in a thought partner to be like, how can I make this better? And then that critical conversation between the AI and the kid to keep building and making and editing. I just don't see a problem with that.
Yeah,
I do really like that the kid does that first thing,
absolutely.
you know.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about AI literacy, where do you start? And at what grade level do you start? And what does that look like?
So I have kids on AI in first grade.
Okay.
And that the example I was just talking about where kids would ask questions, that was a first grade example where they were asking questions about the sun, stars, and the constellation. And
Yeah.
that before the teacher taught, so they could ask anything they wanted. Um, and so to me, that looks like a 5 minute little power up, we'll call it something like this, where a kid just gets to ask some questions. And then we go into some of the traditional types of teaching. Then
Yeah.
maybe have another power up where you can even ask more questions. It's really just about adding these little 5 or 10 minute moments where a kid brainstorms with the AI. But then we come back and put the human in the loop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so for me, AI literacy is not about a kid learning to prompt. It's not about a kid. I mean, when you're talking about images, you really do need to learn to prompt.
Yeah.
But like having, so some of my sixth graders, seventh grade, I think, some of those kids will go and have a conversation with a character from a novel,
Oh, that's
and
great.
and then get deeper into it. And so that I call like a scaffolded support, because a kid who's question wants to ask, in this case, it was Lord of the Flies, who wants to ask Piggy something, and another kid wants to ask Jack something. They can go do their thing in their own adventure, and I don't have to just provide them with the static same worksheet
Yes.
asking or answering the same questions. So for like even a media literacy person, it's just this little 5 minute activity that boosts what we would have gotten before.
Yeah.
That's, and then from that, the kid will say, well, I don't really agree, or I don't, whatever. And that's when I tell kids, well, push back on the AI. Like,
Yeah.
you think that Jack would do that? Push back. And that takes us into the hallucination part of like understanding,
Sure.
push back.
Yeah.
So AI literacy looks like that for me, a thought partnership so the kid can see it doesn't just write papers, cut and paste.
Right.
And this hallucination part. So I always say the best AI policy is not a ban, it's a lesson plan.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Does it look different for older students? Let's say high
Yeah.
school or even college? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I think about sixth, seventh grade, I think kids can begin to. So in the scenario with the stars and sun and
Hmm.
constellation, the teacher gets to see everything they ask. They get to see their misconceptions. They get to see their wonderings, their strengths. So you take that data and you make your next lesson ideas, whatever. But maybe around seventh grade, we might also introduce just asking Gemini questions and not
Yeah.
have that information so that a kid is starting like to take off the training wheels, and not all the time because I want information about what they ask, but every once in a while going to Gemini maybe and asking a question so they get to see what that's like, and we can discuss it afterwards so
Yeah.
that there's learning.
Yeah. I think that's important because, this whole idea of discussing it afterwards, you're just not letting the lesson sit, and said,
Hmm.
great, I used AI, I'm done. So let's move on to the next thing. Right.
Hmm.
There's also this idea that I saw that you came up, I think it's in one of your books or whatever, called the agents of their own thinking, making students what does that mean?
So like with those kids in the stars and constellations,
Yeah.
asking their own questions, they're going down the path of agency for them.
Yeah.
And another example, if we think about like agency, so I was helping these fifth graders come up with ideas for a science fair project. So I made them a little chatbot that would only talk about science fair projects. But one of my kids said, I want to do science fair project on Taylor Swift.
Oh,
So
interesting.
so I, in fifth grade, did the health of the eye. I was not interested in that. So
Yeah.
I did it, task done. I made my science fair board, whatever. But a kid who wants to do it on Taylor Swift, they're going to have more agency. They're going to like be so much more interested in this science fair project than I was because I was given that I had to do the health of the eye.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by agents, like having their own agency.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So how do you get teachers who aren't used to doing that to do that?
I try to show those classroom examples. So I've made like a little five little step kind of, I don't want to call it a framework, but like here are five things you can start with because
Uh-huh.
I don't want it to be a big ask for teachers. So like was talking about with the stars and constellations, one of them is called a curiosity spark. One of them is called a brainstormer. So that would fit in the science fair example. One of them is a checkpoint. One is instant feedback. So if a kid is like not knowing if they're doing something right, they can get some instant feedback. And the fifth one is that scaffolding where the kid's
Yeah.
asking questions of the novel or the science experiment or whatever it is. And I'm trying to give teachers something simple so they're not overwhelmed. They're not like, one thing we did wrong is we
Hmm.
told teachers they have to be prompt engineers. And
Yep.
every teacher was like, I'm done. I'm not going to be a prompt engineer, you know? And so I think we're past that in 2026. And now we can just say, add these little moments to your lesson, a little curiosity time, a little brainstorming time. And that's not as hard. I'm hoping.
I could see that. I mean, because I've run a lot of brainstorms, and I remember reading where one of the worst things you can do in a brainstorm is put up a blank wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because everybody's going, what
And
am I
I've done
supposed to
it.
do? Right, right.
Yeah.
I think we all have. Thinking,
Yeah.
okay, everybody's smart enough, they're going to be able to throw
Yeah.
stuff up there. But
Yeah.
a percentage of people are going, I don't even know where to start. You're showing me a blank wall. What kind of
Yeah.
stimulus or what kind of ideas can you give me to at least get me started? Yeah,
I've done it so much. I gave him blank storyboard templates.
there you go.
I'm
Yeah,
like, you guys can do this, but
right.
I
Yeah,
can't.
that's true. So as you're speaking to different groups around the world, do you see any differences in the way maybe different countries or different areas adopt technology versus here? And what does that look like?
So America's in a very weird place. And we're in the middle of just fighting with each other over just about anything that we can think of, AI being one of them,
Hmm.
technology being one of them. And when I step outside of the US, they're not having those conversations. They're not fighting about technology or AI or everything else in the world. So when I do some work in New Zealand, they're like open. They're like, let's go. Um, I really haven't come across a teacher in New Zealand who's like, I'm not using AI. I won't do that. But that's
Really?
all the time in the US.
Yeah.
And so and like China, they're just it's
Oh,
just
sure.
they're doing it. You're not
Yeah.
gonna be able to say no. And I think that sadly, it's going to impact where we are in the world in 20 years from now. Not for every kid, but for many whose teacher said, I'm not going to use AI in the classroom and you're going to write everything in a notebook.
Yeah.
Poor kid is going to be
They'll be behind.
sadly left behind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when I see these other countries and what they're doing. I want to scream and yell. You guys have no idea what and I know everyone knows we're fighting with each other, but I don't know if they see the future impact of what that's going to do.
Yeah. So what do you think needs to happen to try to change that?
Um, um, I think that the teachers who are using technology well need to be louder.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I think that we need we need to find middle ground here in the US and start to come back together. I don't know what that will take. I assume a lot. Um, and I think that I just think we have to find middle ground and we're not doing it. So I don't know
Yeah.
how I just think for the teachers who understand this and are doing it well, just rock on and keep going because even if it's 20 kids, they'll be ready for our future.
Sure. Yeah. So, so much of this gets dictated by mostly by school districts. So, what makes a school district more adaptable to new technology? And does that start at the superintendent level? Does it start at the principal? Does it start with the teacher? What does that look like for a district or even a school itself that says, okay, we're going to do it?
Leadership is everything.
Sure. Yeah.
And also, teachers can have a lot more power than they think. If they bring, like I did in San Diego Unified, I brought the superintendent into a classroom and showed him in 2023, we were using second graders, and I brought him in and said, look at what we're doing. He couldn't comprehend at that moment what we were doing, unfortunately, because he's
Yeah.
like, fired up kids, because at the time we were using ChatGPT and we were using it on the screen, but the kids weren't using it. They're second grade. And he walked in and he's like, fired up, kids, let's get on that ChatGPT. And I was like, stop. No,
Yeah.
we're not getting on ChatGPT. But it's leadership. I think it's teachers have more power than they think because if they bring in someone and show what's happening. And I think something else right now, when we brought in Chromebooks into classrooms, there were leaders who had never taught with technology. At this point, they had become a principal and they hadn't taught with technology. So as they moved their school forward, they didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Quite everyone uses AI at this point, pretty much, except for those 10% of teachers,
Yeah.
language teachers. Um, and so like leaders are using AI to write an email, so they can wrap their head around that this is powerful and that it's going to take different leadership. But most schools that I deal with want to do something with AI. They're
Yeah.
no the leader's not like, no, not our school, unless they're just in a really small area and no one's pushing on them.
Yeah. And well, so here in Sacramento County,
Yeah.
there's 12 school districts, 5 of which are unified, joint unified. The rest are K through 8 and then feed into some of these others. And a couple of the K through 8 school districts here in Sac County, I mean, if you're familiar with this area, it's a metropolitan area,
I
but
went
there
to school
okay, there you go. So there are school districts that were within the county that are small and are actually fairly rural.
yeah.
And those are the ones that are struggling with, they might have one IT person who runs IT for the entire district, and that they're being told to try to implement some kind of AI policy, and they don't even know where to start, or they're getting pushback from the superintendent because the parents are telling that person, we don't want AI in the classroom.
Yeah.
Or there's enough of them that are saying that to where he or she feels like they have to pay attention to that.
So super important, two important things on what you just said.
Yeah.
The smaller school districts, because you have an Elk Grove who
Yeah.
is well known for being very innovative, and so I mean they could look to school districts like that.
Yeah.
But first of all, I wouldn't do a policy that has to go in front of the board. I would do guidelines because
Oh,
it's
good.
so much. And then there was one other thing that you said. You said they were rule and they were trying to find AI. Ooh,
Well, because the superintendent might hear from parents, that nope, we don't want it.
yeah, so the parents are thinking that when you say AI, that a first grader is using ChatGPT
Yeah.
or Gemini. And I've done this a lot with at schools that I work with. And I work with one school in particular all the time. And we have parent meetings. We have them like once a month. And the parents, it takes them a while to understand what we mean when we say AI. So I take them most of the time I'm using a program that's called School AI. I think it's a
I've
bad
heard of
name.
that. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think it's a bad name because the parents hear it and they're like, they're on AI, whatever. But I take them into this program. I let them see what this chatbot looks like, and I work on giving them comfort.
Okay.
And right now, I'm in a school that's 800 kids, which is really great because I can make change in a small school district like that. But there are 2 parents, and that's it, who are like, I don't want my kid on AI. So I'm meeting with them in 2 weeks to personally take them through and show them what it looks like when the kids are doing it. So
Yeah.
I take out that miscomfort. If I'm at Elk Grove, I cannot do that.
No.
That is too many kids and whatever.
It's the third largest school district in the state. So you're absolutely right. There was one person I had on here, Alana Winnick. Do you know Alana
Yeah,
Winnick?
Alana.
Yeah.
Her and I are very close.
Yeah,
actually.
because she had mentioned we were having this conversation more about getting teachers comfortable with, and she said one example that she uses is she has them use some simple form of AI to do their grocery list, just to get them used to using something that's part of their everyday life. Are there
Yeah.
things like that you're kind of incorporating too?
Yes, but I walk them through a different scenario where I
Yeah.
teach them how to ask ChatGPT something and then take it into Gemini and say, do you agree or disagree with this? And then finally we take it into Claude. So I'm trying to get teachers to see that they have these three experts. You never just want to
Mm,
use one. And
yeah.
so in that, I'm trying to teach them critical thinking. But here's what's happened. I think we've jumped the shark in meaning that most teachers have in fact used AI at this point.
Yeah.
Lana might have been talking about, you know, a minute ago.
Yeah. That's
Although
true.
she
This
and I
was
talked
6 months ago. Yeah. Roughly 4 months ago. Yeah.
about, and in
I
the
know.
AI world.
That's,
Um,
yep.
but and she's right, like you've got to get them comfortable. But I happen to know today she's doing a notebook LM training with all the teachers, so they're past that at this
Yeah.
point. Um, so I kind of go in and if a teacher hasn't used AI, I tell them when I leave, if there's something you don't understand, ask AI.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
I want them to. They're always like, "How do you know all this?" And because there's like Canvas and Gemini, and I was
Yeah.
doing some Canvas, and they're like, "How do you know about this Canvas?" And I'm like, "I asked."
Yeah. That's simple. That's simple. So you mentioned something a little bit ago, Holly, about, the future of education, the future period. What do you see it looking like, say, 5, 6 years from now? It's hard to tell, but I mean, just kind of based on your experience and the people you're talking with.
So when Jensen Wong came out today and say we probably are an AGI,
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't because I'm watching videos of people buying or selling their home with ChatGPT, doing the contracts, doing all the putting it on MLS. I have heard recently listen, I'm watching a lot of reels and TikTok, so this is where this information is coming from. But like that we probably will see mostly robot surgeons going forward
Uh-huh.
in years. So, like, I don't know what this world looks like, but I know it's changing faster than people understand. And I use something called Claude more
Yeah.
than any of the rest of them. And Claude right now is building things for me. And that's what I want teachers to understand. That's why I don't want them using a magic school to make lesson plans because they need to be in these large language models and seeing where they're moving and shifting and changing. Because if you are doing what I'm doing in Claude right now, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what survives, to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. But where, though, is there still going to be a need for a human component?
I think that's gonna be tripled. I think
Oh,
if
interesting. Okay.
AI is gonna do like build me the website or whatever, I'm gonna want to take that extra time and be with family, be with humans, be what and I have AI over here doing some of my work.
Yeah.
I just think it might actually make it something we've never known
Yeah.
in connection.
Yeah. So then
I don't know.
yeah, how do we, taking kind of what we've already talked about in terms of what you're doing in classroom, how do we continue to prepare kids for that kind of future?
My facial expressions, like that's I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it's not by having them write their essays in a blue book,
Right.
but I
Right.
know.
Yeah.
I think it like these teachers have got to understand, especially like in the language arts situation where a kid's writing a paper, this editing part of it can help
Hmm.
them so much be a better writer. Like we're complaining, kids can't write, we don't have literacy. Well, we can now.
Yeah.
Like if you would do that. And so I don't know what that means for kids because I think this is going to be a revolution that we're not going to understand as it's happening.
Yeah.
Things are going to change fast and
I
furious.
think that's true. We had a student media day here a few weeks ago where we had different people from media exposing kids to different jobs, and I was talking to some of these students after the fact. They were all in high school. 4 or 5 of them, every single one of them said, "Oh, we don't like AI. We don't want to have anything to do with it. We don't want it." Are you finding that reaction too with older students?
So let me tell you what that's about.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. I when I tell this story, I forget the reasoning. But so there is a bunch of algorithms hitting kids that tell them two things. there's too much data being used by AI, so don't use it.
Uh-huh.
Their algorithm is about the arts.
Okay.
Any 18 or 19-year-old that you talk to right now, maybe even 14 to 20, whatever, they're going to say, I don't like AI because of the artistic part and the data usage. The data usage, actually, there's more, there's more energy used in creating a hamburger. It's about 23,000 times more than a prompt.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
so kids just need to learn that side of it, but also someone said that they're hitting them with the algorithm because they don't want them going and using AI and not being on social media. And they want to keep them addicted to social media. And so they're sending them these messages that AI is bad.
Oh man, that's crazy. I hadn't heard that because certainly I've seen the algorithms with the data that says, you kill a cow just by using the word please in a prompt.
Yes.
And I'm going, that doesn't even make sense. Yeah. No. So what's the argument that you can make with kids then to get them past that?
So I try to show them some statistics. I
Yeah.
also say that, like, listen, we live in California. I live on a canyon that could go and fire any moment.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think, like, I'm thinking about those things. And when I am using a ton of AI, I try, maybe I don't eat meat the next day.
Yeah.
I drive an electric car, but maybe I do certain things that help me manage that use to
Mm-hmm.
be better. But also, we know as these large language models are being trained, that data has already been used up.
Yeah.
Like, you're not getting that same amount of data per prompt. But so I have kids look at the different amounts of data is used in watching a Netflix series
Uh-huh.
versus things like that, things that are interesting to them. And the thing with the artist, I actually kind of feel a little bit the same about the artist because I consider myself an artist. Like, I create lesson plans, and that's
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
honest. And that's why I don't want teachers going on to AI to make a lesson plan because that's part of your art. Like, you can have it as a thought partner, like, oh, I'm stuck on this, or I need kids to collaborate. What should I do? But to give everything over to AI to make your lesson plan, I think is problematic.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of with them on the artist part, but there is, like, I think that they need to be aware of, maybe there's a balance.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true. So do you have another book in mind?
I'm actually just redoing the AI infused classroom.
Okay, because so much has changed.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I didn't really do it with, like, ChatGPT. I did it around
Yeah.
learning and the way AI will help us
Yeah.
change things. But now it's even looking bigger. So yeah.
Okay. So as you've been working through this infused classroom and technology, what's the worst advice or worst thing you ever heard anybody say that was just going, that does not make sense, other than the algorithms we just talked about?
Mhm. So I don't know if it's like the worst advice. I will just tell you the worst thing that came out of the Chromebook revolution.
Okay.
When every kid got a Chromebook because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And teachers learned about Google Forms and slides and docs and whatever. And when teachers took worksheets and then just digitized them by putting them inside a Google slide deck,
Uh-huh.
um, eh, I think that was one of the worst things that teachers could have done. Because if you take a person like me who's dyslexic, you've just taken something that's really hard for me and just put it on a screen. And
Yeah.
I gave a keynote for Q, and I said, like everything that we do in classrooms, it's good content. My history is good content. The media stuff's good content.
Yeah.
We've been giving it in the wrong format. And that format would be Google Slides for a worksheet or a worksheet. How can we just change the format by giving them a thought partner or letting them, like, talk to Notebook LM about some of their assignments, whatever? How can we just change this format a little bit to be more 2026?
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, I just, there's a lot of people who needed to make some money or
That's true.
influential, and they took all the teaching and put it into Google Slides.
Yep.
And I don't know that that was good.
Well, Probably wasn't. I mean, I'm not a teacher, and I've only worked with this group for about a little over a year, but I've always been interested in education. But the thing that struck me now that I've worked with these teachers is just how overwhelmed they are on a regular basis, right? I mean, you obviously know that as an educator. Where do you, how do you counsel them to find the time to still try to keep up with this and still try to incorporate it in a classroom when it's like, it's all I can do to show up in
Yeah.
some days.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've been there. I taught seventh grade language
Oh boy.
arts where I would have 30 kids per period for seven
Yeah.
periods. A lot of kids
Yeah.
to try and like meet their needs and all the things. Um, that's kind of where my little five-step thing is. A curiosity
Oh
spark,
sure.
5 minutes, 5 minutes. So, you don't have to learn this whole new tool. You don't have to learn how to prompt. You don't have to learn all these things. And maybe you do it once a month.
Yeah.
And so I don't know the answer to that. If I did, I would, and
Right.
not, but I'm just saying, like, I would, if that's something I'm trying to study right now with the school I'm working with, and it's in New Jersey, is
Hmm.
why do I come there? And I'm there all the time. And we do these great lessons with AI, but when I leave, they won't do it without me.
Interesting. Because they need somebody there to kind of keep pushing. It's almost like a
Yeah,
physical trainer,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That
it is.
some people
Exactly.
just
But
will
I never
not do
thought of
it.
that.
Right.
Yeah,
You just won't do it unless you're
yeah,
there.
yeah,
So maybe you need an app where you show up on the screen and say,
yeah,
hey, Sally, are you doing
yeah,
this?"
yeah. That's exactly what it is. Like
Yeah.
you don't go to the gym unless your trainer's there and you're
Yep.
paying them.
Yeah. Unless you're very self-motivated, then you just probably will not do it.
And just like the trainer cannot answer that question, how do you get them to the gym when they're not with you? That's
No.
sort of the same question. I don't
Right.
know.
But you said something interesting though, Holly, in terms of getting people just look at it as small bites, right?
Mhm.
5 minutes. It doesn't even have to be 5 minutes a day. Maybe it's 5 minutes a week or 5 minutes this. And so, you know, a good personal trainer is going to say, okay, maybe you don't go to the gym every day, but just do something. Get up out
Mhm.
of your chair, walk around, do something,
Mhm.
right? Just to keep yourself at least physically moving when I'm not there,
Mhm.
right? I don't
Uh-huh.
know. It seems like at least some way because I think you're already doing that to the extent that you're giving them at least something that is manageable within the context of their day.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
hard.
I, and we both know that teachers have been given an impossible situation.
Yes.
They don't have enough time. If we could just give teachers one more period off or one more 45-minute block or
Yeah.
something. And it's really hard to watch when you see, like, people getting these jobs to stop immigration at these amazing amounts of salary,
I know.
student loans paid back, and yet you didn't pay back the teacher student loan.
Right.
Didn't give them a working wage.
Yeah.
And then if I were a teacher right now watching that, it would be really hard for me.
I bet it would. I could see that. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of teachers we've had in here. One in particular is a guy who teaches. He said, I gave up my free periods so I could be there for my kids in
Hmm.
the class. So he says, I'm there so that if they have questions, if they need anything. So he teaches 6 periods plus coaches, and he
Hmm.
coaches 3 different sports. So he is there from
Nice. Yeah,
6:30
yeah,
in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. And then he goes home and he does whatever else he needs to do and then starts it all over again.
I just don't understand why we can't respect teachers and pay them a livable wage.
Yeah.
And like, maybe if you pay them a livable wage, they're willing to do something after 3:30 or whatever.
Yeah.
Just it's and then we say, well, how do we get teachers? And when they're over, I think this is not a teacher problem. This is a societal problem
Yeah.
that it's got to get fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in this 30 years. This is my 30th year. Hasn't gotten fixed.
No, it hasn't. And we could spend another couple hours talking about it too, couldn't we? Because you're
Mhm.
right. I mean, this goes back centuries practically in terms of how people have thought of teachers, particularly in this country,
Mhm.
and just glorified babysitters in some
Yeah.
respects or with huge expectation and outcome.
And you asked about when I leave the country. When I leave the country, people make a living wage.
Yeah.
they get time off, you know.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Well, last question. Any last words you want to leave with folks?
Um, I guess it would have to be about anyone who's listening who's not using AI. I guess we'll take the Alana Winnick framework and say, like, just ask some questions about your own health. Ask some questions like as an example, I'm trying to grow some citrus trees right now, and I'm always gone, and they're in the wrong sun. So I took a day with ChatGPT and I took pictures of everywhere where the sun was, and I asked ChatGPT, where do I put these citrus trees? And I just came back from like 2 weeks of travel. Those things are flourishing.
Oh, that's great.
Like who knew to
Yeah.
ask ChatGPT about where to put your citrus trees, but find something that you can work with ChatGPT or Gemini or whoever on, or I don't know if you say whoever, but and just start to get used to using this tool.
Yeah. That's really good advice because what's funny is I'm the oldest person here in our organization, and yet I'm the biggest proponent of using this stuff. And the younger ones initially were going, no, I don't really feel comfortable doing it because somehow they felt like it was going to demean their own effort, right? And somehow not give them an opportunity to show me that they could do it. And I said, you can still do it. You still need to have to implement whatever you come up with. But also, part of it is how are you going to come up with it? What kind of prompts are you going to give it? And what's the outcome based on what you're thinking? And they're slowly starting to come around to, oh, that's what I can do. And I don't feel like it's taking anything away from my own ability.
Just what you said, just use it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And the word now, I'll leave you with this.
Yeah.
The word now is not about prompt engineering. It's actually about context. What's the context you need to figure out? And if you think about the word context in terms of education, if I said to a kid, what's the context of the Civil War? That's the stuff we need. That's the juice.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the context of this media thing that you're going to produce? So we need to shift away from this prompting word because it's no longer a thing where we get magic words in and magic words out. Not like a Google thing. So what's the context?
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Well, Holly, this has been great and really interesting. I appreciate, again, you taking the time here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
And where are you in Sacramento?
So we're kind of in Northgate area, Natomas area.
I lived in Natomas.
Okay, so
Davis,
we're right off of Main, Del Paso Boulevard and Northgate Boulevard. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So next, if you ever make it up here, you're going to have to give us a call.
I will.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you again. That's it for this episode of Lights, Camera, Learn. You can catch all of the episodes on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, and our secctv.org website. And you can help support us on Patreon by clicking Lights, Camera, Learn. Till the next episode, make it a great day. Thank you.